Street Fighter 6 may be the most accessible fighting game of all time, and I don't think anything comes close. Now let me start off by saying Street Fighter 6 has been one of the biggest games of this entire year. It's been a blast to play so far. The cast of new characters has been just a great addition to the franchise. I mean, every character in this game is interesting or fun to play. I'm loving it. I'm loving everything about it so far. But I think one thing that's going under the radar is how accessible this game is to new players, to people who quote unquote suck at fighting games. And I think this is something that needs to be promoted a lot more, because one of the biggest issues when it comes to fighting games is that barrier to entry, right? You go on Twitter, you go on YouTube, and you see these dudes hitting these crazy, insane combos. You see them juggling you for 30 seconds. And a lot of people just think, man, that's all I'll run into online. I'll never be able to get better. I'll never be able to, fight people like this. And so after that first month of the game, usually you see a huge decline of players. And before a year is up, the fan base and the player base is dedicated to just the smallest amount of people, who take the game seriously or just, want to get better. But I think with this game, there are so many ways to improve and so many ways to get better. The game gives you 3 modes and each have their distinctive use. You first start off with World Tour mode, and it's pretty much like My Player from NBA 2K. If you've played any of those games where you're a weak character, you have your rags to riches, and over time you just get stronger and you become the best. This is that. It's a really fun mode that doesn't take itself too seriously. And you're pretty much just doing side quests. You're fighting random people on the street. It's literal Street Fighter. You're just going around throwing hands. It's hilarious. I think this is a great mode for casuals, and it's a great way to get introduced into the mechanics and just kind of learn what characters you may like. You then have the Fighting Ground. Now, the Fighting Ground is super cool. Now, in a traditional fighting game, you may just say, oh, these are just your standard modes, but Street Fighter 6 goes into depth, right? You have your standard arcade/story mode, which is separate from World Tour. You have your versus, your one-on-ones, your team battles. You've got something called Special Match, which allows you to do these extreme battles. Think of them as like fun party games where maybe you have a random bull charging at you, or you have an electric ball that randomly, ignites while you're playing. Then you have one of the main reasons for this video, practice mode. It has your standard training mode, which has so many in-depth buttons that I can't even go to explain like everything that it gives you. You have great tutorials that give you the basic combat understanding, your basic jabs, punches, your special moves. But then you have character guides and you have combo trials. What I really like about the character guides is that it's from the perspective of the character as if he's training you. So he's like, hey, if I'm playing as E Honda, was one that I did. E Honda's bragging about himself the whole time while he's doing these training modules, and he's, telling you the benefits and the negatives of each move. If you use the headbutt, it's a very good move for closing the gap. But if you're too predictable, your enemies can react to it, right? So it gives you a basic understanding of what each character's moves, buttons, and even game plan is. Super cool, and I think it's vital to learning any new character. As someone who knows most of this cast outside of the new characters, and I've been playing Street Fighter for my whole life, I mean, it's great to see some of these character guides for, Zangief, a character that I finally played because I've always wanted to learn a grappler, or Ken, who has a bunch of new moves in this iteration of himself, right? Then you also have the combo trials. Now, these are standard in, any sort of fighting game, but the combo trials are just a very good way to understand literally your character's combos. As you get better, you'll learn, more optimal routes and, maybe a certain combo that's easier for you. But these are just great ways to get an understanding of how some of your character's moves link together. Now then you've got the meat and bones of everything, the online mode, known as the Battle Hub. It's where I spend a lot of my time at, and it's a blast. This game has rollback netcode, which for people who don't know, let's just keep it simple and say people prefer games to have this style of netcode. It makes the matches run a lot better. It causes the game to compensate a lot better for laggy players, which is something that can definitely ruin a fighting game. And I would say this game has the best netcode I've ever experienced in any fighter. I thought Guilty Gear Strive did a really good job, and I thought the netcode on that game was amazing. But dude, this game, it even puts Guilty Gear Strive to shame. The netcode is so good. You have really fun lobbies. You can do rank matches. You can do casual matches. You can jump into matches with your character that you created in Battle Tour or Battle Hub, whatever I'm talking about. I'm saying all sorts of stuff. You can take your World Tour character and run around. You can play fighting games on the arcade cabinet. You can play old classics like Street Fighter 2 or Final Fight. It's amazing, dude. It's amazing. And this game, I just can't recommend it enough to people. It's a solid experience. It's something that I believe most people would want to play. And if you're new to fighting games, this is definitely the one to get into. If you've always wanted to play Street Fighter, this is the one to get into. You've got modern controls, which I forgot to talk about until all this time. And modern controls give you an alternate control scheme that lets you do special moves by using one button or a button in a direction. So if you played Super Smash Brothers, for example, you know how your moves correspond with your B button, right? So if you do up and B, down and B, side and B, just the neutral B, those are all different moves. And they've implemented that into this game to help newcomers. And I found myself using it with Zangief. So the gameplay that's probably going to be on the screen now is me using modern controls to do one button suplexes with Zangief. And it's great. It's been fun for me, and I have no shame in doing it. So great game overall. I just hope that, you know, more people get into this. It's a super fun and exciting time. And let me know what you all think of Street Fighter 6, because this game is straight fire. But once again, appreciate everybody for stopping by. If you enjoyed the video, you already know what to do, man. Hit that like, sub to the channel, and let me know what character is your main and what control scheme you're using. But once again, have a good one. See y'all on the flip side, y'all. Peace out and deuces.